Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this workshop on BAM and KYC, how fintech can solve the problem. My name is Emmanuel Lecher, and I am in charge of the Studies and Publication Department at REDBRIDGE. We are a debt and treasury advisory firm based in Houston, New York, London, Paris, and Geneva. I am here today with my teammate, Alexandre Lhéritier.
Good day, Emmanuel.
Hello. And we will start with a 20 minutes conversation around BAM, and then we will take the time to answer all your questions. I hope there will be a lot of them. Please don't be shy. If it's more easy for you, do not hesitate to send your question, well, in English, but also in French, in Italian, Spanish, or German. Any language will do. Alex, you are passionate about technology. You are also a very sharp observer of the fintech world and all the solutions developed for corporate treasurers. When we generally think about BAM and associate BAM with technology, the first thing that comes to our mind is EBAM. So EBAM was launched, well, something like 12 years ago. Where do we currently stand on this great initiative? But
I would say we stand very far away from the initial ambition or initial dream that led to the creation of EBAM. Not to say that the technology is not working, but it's not working as far and as much as expected initially. So today, when you think about it, even though you said that the product or the solution was created close to 12 years ago, the reality is that we still have 49% of our customers, whether they are treasurers or CFOs, who are still putting bank account management, KYC, exchanges, communication with banks as their number one issue, which is a lot and says that in reality, the initial attempt is not the right one.
EBAM didn't solve the BAM problem.
No.
I think that the good news is that, well, there are also new technologies coming that will maybe streamline the way that we communicate with bank. And you know, the buzzwords, the magic word today is API and blockchain.
Yeah, you're right. It's buzzwords or almost magical words. You know, there's that belief that just by saying blockchain, everything will get solved straight away, which is just amazing. But the reality is that we're not working with Harry Potter, and that doesn't work. At least it doesn't work as people believe. The reality is that you don't have one solution that solves it all. Whether you're talking about blockchain, EBAM, APIs. One alone won't bring us to where we need to be. Them all together, yes, actually that can be a very interesting set or beginning for a solution. Why am I saying this? Is that, first of all, if you're talking about blockchain requires a network. There's a network effect there that will drive, I would say, its efficiency to our clients. To put that in, to make a comparison, it's like mobile phones. If you're the only one in the world having a mobile phone, you won't go very far. The value of that mobile and your network is close to nil. Now, multiply that by 1 billion people, and suddenly your mobile phone is very useful. It's the same thing for blockchain. If you're the only one using it, you won't go very far. If you've got a sufficient network of corporates, banks using it, then it's a totally different story. And why? Because it brings you, at the same time, an encryption methodology and a database function. And putting them together brings safety, speed, and efficiency to our clients. Not to mention, of course, the cost cutting compared to existing solution. APIs is quite different because APIs, it's simply an application that will plug itself onto an existing platform in order to facilitate communication with others. That too is new. And you talked about fintech at the beginning. It's exactly about that. Fintech have brought a realm of solutions, essentially through APIs, that bring flexibility to our clients, but also to banks, to re-establish communications in a straight-through processing way. This is where we really believe that some developments are possible. Plug that all together, and you get something that becomes really interesting.
But I really think that people need to have in mind that regulation is still there, and in some country, you still need paper, you will still continue to need PDF, or, I mean, you cannot communicate with your banks just like your BAM platform decides. And so I think that maybe one of the major learning for the future is that you need to have a BAM solution which is flexible in terms of ways to communicate with your banks.
You're spot on, Emmanuel. The reality is that you can see that there's an interesting dynamics coming from fintech today. The new technologies are pushing, challenging regulators across the world to reconsider what is permissible or not. And of course, the reaction or the empathy or understanding of those regulators can vary a lot from one country to the other. I before joining REDBRIDGE, I was in banking. I've worked for close to 20 years in the banking space. The UK, France, Australia, Middle East, and it was interesting that even working for the same bank, actually the interpretation of what was required, the way to communicate with the same global multinational, could be very different from one country to the other. So what it means is that, yes, it's great to have the technologies because it gives us way more freedom, and regulators are more and more playing the game. They're really embracing it, which is a real benefit to all our clients. But at the same time, we cannot come and say the technology alone is sufficient and all the regulators will follow. It doesn't work like that. And for that reason, we need actually to understand country per country what the regulation is asking for, so that then when we go back to our client and exchange with our clients on the right setup to implement, to manage their bank account management, then we have a comprehensive and implementable solution that will work to our clients.
But I mean, even we've just talked about how you communicate with your banks and the way that technology can streamline the communication with banks around bank account management. But I really think that is just one part of the topic. Maybe let's just take a few minutes to go back to the treasurer's needs on bank account management. I mean, what is it all about?
It's about many things, actually. It's important to set the scene in a clear way. Bank account management, first of all, can cover KYC, powers, authorizations, but also bank fees. So it's quite it's quite large. That's point number one. Point number two, the bank account management actually covers different pillars. The first one is having in-house, i.e. within the corporate, having a database that gathers all the information in an accurate way. That's point number one. Point number two, you need a process to keep that information up to date, which is a challenge also per se. Why? Because you don't have one software or platform within the corporate that will gather the information. You have lots of different ERPs or solutions that are actually collecting bits and pieces of the BAM information. Just simple example. If you have, for instance, a local CFO who decides to leave a group, what platform, what software will get first the information? Probably the HR one. And in an ideal world, that HR information will move from their software or their platform to the TMS system of our client, or the BAM software or platform that will be provided to be able to link the information as fast and efficiently as possible. Again, in an ideal world, without human intervention. Just two platforms, but you can have way more than that. The next step is, once you've got the right database, the right process to keep your information up to date within your company, then it's how you communicate with the banks. This is how we started, because there's with EBAM, I think there was lots of buzz and lots of focus on that part, but in reality, it's only one step in the supply chain. Mm-hmm. The last element is actually, once you've gone beyond the communication with the banks and it works, then there's a KYC piece, which is another one, the holy grail of BAM ultimately, to be able to help our clients to share information swiftly, properly with the banks, and that banks can utilize them.
Mm-hmm. I think that, on the key pillars that you've just defined, it's also about meeting KYC requirements in all countries. And to me, these aspects of regulation and KYC is definitely not about technology.
It's, at this stage, technology can help, as we know, but you're right to say that the point number one is people want efficiency. They want to save costs. Just to put things in perspective, for some banks, the cost of a KYC is close to $20,000 a year. That's how expensive it is. Now, I haven't seen stats about the cost of KYC on the corporate side. But if you take 1 second to think about it, how much time and how many people are involved in those companies to collect information on a regular basis and share it with 1, 2, 20, 80, 100 different banks, and often the same information, but at different moments across the year. This is a real challenge. And today, everyone is looking at cost cutting or cost optimization, and for good reasons. IBAM is about, streamlining the process in order to bring those costs down, but at the same time, improving efficiency, because as you said earlier, the time it takes sometimes to get the information in the system, communicate it to the banks to process it and return the confirmation that things have been implemented. For instance, please close an account. That can take a lot of time, and the timeline actually may be a window for fraudsters to jump in. And this is what we want to avoid. We had 56% of treasurers and CFOs who today tell us that their number one priority is fraud. Fraud can appear at many levels within the company and outside of the company. BAM is only one part of it, but it's a very important one, because if I take the examples the example I shared earlier, if you take a local CFO, let's say in Indonesia, who retires, leaves the group, but the powers, the authorizations are not updated fast enough with the local banks, that's a window for a fraudster to come in and send a transfer request that may be processed, may not be processed, depends on many things. But this is a risk that corporates do not want to take anymore.
Oh, this brings to my mind, something which is, where should your BAM platform located? As you said, the information can come from the HR system, the information can be located in the ERP system, and also in the treasury management system. This is very common. And clearly, ERPs and TMS software providers have generally a BAM module in their offer. But you need to give also, in the meantime, a very large access to people who will fill in the right information regarding bank account management. And maybe there's an interest from our viewpoint also in having an independent platform which you can access in a very, very light way, secured, of course, totally secured, to update this information.
This is exactly the process, the idea of an API, Emmanuel. Because when you think about it, here we're not coming and saying you need to change all your platforms, your ERPs, your TMS to have one platform, because first, I don't think people are willing to take the time, and could one platform alone solve all the problems for HR, for finance, etc.? I doubt it. That's point number one. Point number two is that you've got lots of software providers that, as you rightly say, have got a BAM element in it. Now, the question is it enough to cover everything? And that's a question that everyone should ask himself or herself. The answer is not really. It's one piece, and if this is depending on what you want, that may be sufficient. I'm not saying that those platforms are bad, actually. It really depends on your needs. Now, if you've got, I would say, global, comprehensive needs, then our belief is that the best solution is a platform that can communicate with the existing platforms and communicate with the outside world. Now, if your data is wrong, if your process is wrong, the platform won't solve the problem. This is why the idea is to manage people's expectations. It's not a plug and play. It's we understand the process, we help fine-tune the process, And once we've completed that mapping, then we can talk about plugging and setting up an efficient platform, as we said at the beginning, using different technologies depending on the countries, depending on the banks that you're using. The key word is modularity, technology, but at the same time, local knowledge. Because those elements together make a solution workable, implementable. If you remove one element of those 3 points, well, your chances to succeed are pretty limited.
Yeah, I totally agree that a good BAM solution requires more than technology. It's clearly a treasury and a bank matter expert. And I would say that this is what we have seen on bank fees, on bank fee statement.
Well, there's a lot to say in there, and thank you for raising that, because it's true that when we talk about BAM, we think about powers, authorization, etc. But the bank fee piece generally is left alone, and funnily enough, or sadly enough, left alone by many people. Why? Because it's super hard to actually have that visibility. Why? Because banks are using different terminologies for the same fees all across the globe. And sometimes even when you have an international bank, they will not bring you or offer you the same terminology all across the globe.
And even, I should say, also even the existing standardization of way to present your bank fees are interpreted totally differently.
Very differently. And to be fair here, what I'm saying is not against banks, because they're using platforms that, first, several platforms across the world. So it's not one, it's several ones most of the time. And on top of that, those platforms tend to be 20 or 30 years old. True, updated regularly through different new layers, but it creates lots of complexity, and it's very hard at the end of the day to provide a consistent approach, a consistent terminology of bank fees. The US started it, had that initiative called BSB, and that's why our tool is called OK BSB. And it's working very well. Now, the thing is, not everyone across the globe is using that terminology. So a big part of our job has been to, in fact, establish a global catalog of bank fees across the globe, across banks, to be able to reconnect those local terminologies with a common one. And that, exactly, a global mapping. That, trust me, that takes a lot of time, but we've done it. And now the benefit for our clients is that when we put in place that solution, in reality, they can have full visibility on the bank fees, per bank, per geography. They can mix it as they want, but importantly, they can also assess how much they're paying versus what they should have paid. And when I say what they should have paid, is that most of the time, normally at least, you agree with your bank, okay, how much are you paying for? Because originally there was an RFP somewhere to have that agreement, choose the best banks. Now, is that agreed pricing applied consistently? Well, from our experience, the answer is not as much as you think. And that solution helps you not only just monitor, where you spend your money and how, but actually how much you should have been charged based on what was agreed. And that is also a very efficient way to save money. One of our clients put that in place not so long ago. It was just in a few countries. And within a month, he could break even, he could save as much money as the cost of implementation of our solution. So it can be it can be deemed as a low-hanging fruit. Now the thing is, it's part of BAM, and that's why we're talking about that. And that's an element that I would say concretely makes sense. And how does it make sense? Through technology, through local knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that with OK BSB, we just wanted to give to the corporate treasurers a clear visibility on the fees that they paid and the service, the cash management services that they use with every bank and on each subsidiary, on every subsidiary that they have all over the world. It worked pretty well, and we made this huge work of mapping all the way, all the with banks used to send bank fee statements. Of course, we've worked a lot on the communication side to adapt ourselves to communicate very efficiently with the bank on this particular topic. Now the idea is to go one step further and bring on one tool independent from the other tools currently used by the Treasury, very easy to implement, and which would bring a clear BAM solution. The idea is to be ready in the coming months, but I think it really deserves a conversation right now.
Yeah, no, you're right. You know, at REDBRIDGE, we are at the same time a consulting firm and a fintech. And that's quite unique. And that's why I joined REDBRIDGE, because I thought it was very exciting to have that combination of the two together. And you know, when you're close to the fintech world, they always come with their vision, their values. You know, you need, I would say, a purpose. The purpose we've got here is, as you said, is to bring transparency. This is the key word, transparency in the finance world. And this is a huge task because, you know, it's not that people don't want that transparency. Everyone wants transparency. It's that the technology, the regulations are actually hurdles to overcome in order to reach that global transparency. We've done a lot already in that space with OK BSB, and now we're about to launch, I would say, OK BAM. And now the thing is, as you rightly said, is this is now that we need to start communicating and exchanging with our clients, because, you know, and this is also where the benefits of having a consulting firm with a fintech firm, because we don't come and say it's a plug and play. It's not like you're buying an iPod and straight away, or an iPad, and straight away you plug it, you update it, and that's it. It's working. No, it takes a bit of time to understand what you want to achieve, how, and this is exactly what we're asking now. Say, dear clients, let's talk about it. Let's understand what your setup is, what your needs are. Because as I said, BAM is a really huge area. You may not want to cover everything. To understand what is your purpose, what is the scale, the scope, and then be able to actually adapt our solution to your needs. It's not a software you buy off the shelf. It's really adapted to your needs, and that's why I think today is the right time to exchange together.
Well, Alex, thank you very much. I think that we've kind of developed what could be, from our viewpoint, the right features of a good BAM platform, and I think that now it's time to just loop back and answer all your questions. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.